Another vital element to the way that sport is not only played but developed are coaches and managers. And in fact, many of them tend to be former competitive athletes themselves. And with that personal playing experience often comes a deeper understanding and a level of connection with the athletes that they coach. And because of that extra ingredient, it can often turn out to be a differential factor in helping to cultivate champions. Now, we'll hear from industry experts and successful coaches who will strategize the best ways to shape the careers of athletes and to unleash their full potential. Plus, we'll also find out how coaches create a winning formula that maximizes the abilities, the talents, and the personalities of future champions. So please help me in giving a very warm welcome for our next conversation about the coaches of tomorrow, understanding who and what makes a champion, starting with the champion himself, a former football legend and manager, Sol Campbell, Frans Hammer, Vice President of the Danish Olympic Committee, Teresa Schnorbach, Senior Team Lead, Sleep Research at Emma, the sleep company, and making his debut, our very own WFS, Kabir Nagpal, Program Director and Head of WFS Awards at World Football Summit, our moderator, so please give him a lot of extra love today as well. Enjoy it, it's going to be fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Samara. Pleasure to be here. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to our magnificent speakers for joining us. Well, they say, Jack of all trades, master of none. Still better than master of one. Now, a lot of people would miss that second half of the statement, but it just so happens it's a very good point for us to make, because at the end of the 45 minutes to our speakers, I'm going to be flipping the coaches of tomorrow tag to them that, hey, they say coaches don't play. You have 45 minutes to think, do players coach? Yeah? Let's get on with it then. Sol, thank you for joining us. You are an Arsenal legend, especially to me. Thank you so much. I have a very direct question for you in the sense that, what do you wish you knew at the start of your career after all the knowledge that you've gained up until today? What makes a champion? Is that?
What makes a champion?
Yeah.
For me, what makes a champion is recognizing very early on in your career where to be and where not to be. And that can go with football clubs as well. You know, sometimes you have a situation that you are a very talented boy or girl, and you get to a certain level, and you have an attachment to your club, and then you kind of have a situation where you have, you know, you get to really that critical point of, like, you know, the quality and your who you are as a person, your character, your presence, your understanding of the game, and you stay, and you're not at the right club, and you stay at the club for the kind of, you know, heart reasons and the fans and the things like that. Don't get me wrong, the fans are great. You need the fans. But you stay at your boyhood kind of football club, but then someone comes along and say, hey, let's go to the next level. If you don't take that jump, I think that's when you kind of almost miss your slot, and you don't make it. And for me, you know, I used to play at Tottenham Hotspur. For me, one of the things for me, I just said to myself, do you know what? There was an age from about, say, 20, 21, 22, really should have made the move and kind of really kind of, you know, propelled myself into real quality and players around your environment to really kind of maximize who I am and what I stood for, playing wise, you know, my understanding of the game, what I could give the game on and off the field, you know, a club to completely kind of take me on to the next level. And that's, for me, you know, recognizing when to move on. Like you say, like Jude Bellingham, you know, Birmingham City, boom, gone to, you know, Borussia Dortmund, very clever how they found him and got him. Didn't come back to England, right, I'm going Real Madrid, bang. He ain't wasting, he's 19. Don't waste any time.
No, I mean, but that's actually a very good point, right? You have to kind of understand what makes a champion over the years. And what you mentioned, you know, what you would happen at that unnamed club, and then, you know, moving forward to when you were here today. So that actually is a very good segue for, you know, Frans. Thank you for joining us as well. I wanted to touch base with you about the Danish Olympic Committee. We want to look at the grandeur of sports, right? It's not just football at the end of the day. So in your work, you know, could you give us an example that, you know, there's been a definition change for what makes a champion over the years in other sports?
Yeah, first of all, you need to win if you want to be a champion. And it doesn't matter what kind of sport you are. And I think my perspective is to bring some, outside into the football industry from here. And what I've seen in the Olympic family as different sport, there are some small changes. So I totally agree with what Sol said, that you need to play for more than winning the game, more to be the person you really want to be, and so on. And this big why is also the new generation. I think we stay in front of us. And as coaches for tomorrow, what is the name of the debate, is also so important to know and understand, and to give an example that some of the new sport in the Olympic program, starting in the 98 for snowboarding coming on the program for the Winter Games, and also in Tokyo in 2020, where you have skateboard into. Of course, that is very, very athletes with high potential, working a lot, hard every day. There's some of them didn't come for big salary, they come for fighting because they love their sport. But they actually play for more than a win. They play more for the gold medal. They play for be the best. And they are building up their career also in X Games we've seen in the television, where that is not enough to win, but you should try to do something. And of course you fail. You fail a lot. And this kind of culture, and that inspired me also a lot as a person, not about winning the champion. That is not about do something. That is about love the sport and also love your mistakes. And the connection in a group when you're sitting to Olympic to see a first skateboard competition to the Olympic. It's amazing to see how they engage with each other, also the person who missed 3 times and often in the competition. So there are some new, and I really think that is good for the sports industry, that the new athletes, the new generation of why, the big why, also push us a little bit. That is not only to win, that is also a competition where we can engage and love our failures. And that is some of the things we can talk a lot about, especially when we go into the football industry, where in general you are sitting in a position for 18 months or something like 10 months or something like that. You should also handle a new generation. They're going to be excited for the coaches for tomorrow.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we got a really good quote in there. There's like, love your mistakes, right? It's essential to, yes, learn your mistakes is obvious, but it's so important to learn and love at the same time. But thank you. I'll be coming back to that. Teresa, thank you for joining us. Emma Sleep, we've been talking about that at WFS for some time. We're so happy to have you with us. I'm going to lead up with a introductory, but I also want to know how that works with who makes a champion, what makes a champion. But we understand that Emma Sleep is dedicated to enhancing performance through better sleep. And let's first understand how that works. How do you think that sleep contributes towards making the perfect champion in that sense?
Yeah, I just love how you drop this massive question right at the very start. Why is sleep important? Because, oh boy, let me tell you, sleep is your superpower. Now, research has shown that sleep can supercharge your performance in many more ways than just one. Take the obvious one, if you're well rested, you feel less tired, less fatigued. In fact, studies show that your endurance can go up by 40%. But it's not just about feeling less tired. Athletes who sleep well are 1.7 times less likely to get injured. And if you do get injured, your recovery happens faster because your body rebuilds and restores itself at night during deep sleep. But we're also talking about improved reaction times, sharper focus, shooting accuracy, even less fouls committed due to better emotional control. And all of these perks can be traced back to what's happening behind the scenes while we're sleeping. So hormones are released for muscle growth, or your immune system, wound healing gets a boost. Movements, motoric sequences that we practice during the day, during training, are reviewed and stored during sleep. So yes, training is important, but it's the sleep that follows the training that really makes a difference. And when we look at such benefits or differences, we need to remember that in high-performing sports, it's the tiniest margins that separates victory from defeat. Take the fastest runner in the world, slow down his sprint time by just 1%, and this person will no longer be number 1, but maybe 10. And poor sleep is a major issue in sports, in professional sports. Studies are already indicating that 50 to 78% of professional athletes have poor sleep, and 22 to 26% of which are even severely impacted by their bad sleep. I mean, if you have a team of, let's say, 24 players, this means that 12 to 14 of which may sleep poorly, and 5 or 6 of which are even severely impacted by their sleep. Now imagine if those 5 to 6 players happen to build your entire defense. Good luck.
It's a lovely point you left us off, because you said the words, lesser fouls committed. Sol, I really have to bring you in here. Was there a game where you did not sleep well and the next day you thought, oh, I'm getting too many fouls?
No.
No, but I understand the situation. For me, I used to put sleep on a big kind of level for me. Up there, number 1, number 2 of what I had to do within, not only within the day, within like the week, the month, and I would schedule all the kind of games in there, and I would make sure I get a certain amount of hours of sleep. And because as a young player, when you're coming into a man's game, as a youngster, I was in academy, you're playing against boys your age or maybe year above or year below. But then when you get into the big jump of like playing against men, 25, 30-year-olds and things like that, and the demands on your kind of mental capacity, I learned very quickly I needed to sleep. Or even sometimes I used to sleep on the coach as well, and also I used to make sure I got enough sleep. So just to switch off my mind and allow it to have that kind of reboot, that kind of battery kind of boost to actually understand all the difficult, I call them sums, when you're playing against really tricky kind of players or midfielders trying to put some interesting balls either side of you. You need to have a mindset, and your brain needs to rest, so then you can work out all the sums. Yeah. The better you are the better player you are going to be long term as well. So I learned very quickly to kind of make sure I got enough rest to rest my mind, then everything works. Then you can be a complete defender.
Yeah. No, I mean, and to that point, the word sums, it's new to me in the sense of a technical term. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but it is important to get those right? You can't just mess them up. And from my understanding, we've heard about half spaces, but this is very new. I'm sure everybody's learning something here. Franz, I'm going to use that for you here, because we also have to look at other sports. Would you say that you've had like similar experiences with another sport, an example of an athlete maybe who's gone through like the day he did not or she did not, sleep well enough, and that impacted severely something as big as the Olympic Games?
Yeah, I think that we have some waves. Then we have physical waves. Maybe that was the beginning of your career. Then we talk a lot about food, and honestly, today we talk a lot about the sleeping area. There's some condition you cannot take up for the competition that is in the night. There's a lot of light also. How kind of condition is in the match. You eat late. There's a lot of things you cannot put it out. So when the football industry or the sports industry are more globally, you also switch from time zone to another and so on. So there's a lot of things, especially when we look at that. And also they have a lot of technology. Normally I have a ring on it, and I'm so glad should be very good at sleep because to be political in the sports industry, because then I'm very, very big trouble. Yeah. So of course, that is the third way I was saying we think about it, and we try, especially our system, that and there's also a gap because they are also human beings, have their own rules. So what is the step as coach, as organization, as a committee, that you go into the barrier that is a private area, this kind of things? Now we are very, very close when we talk about what happens in your bed. Yep. So that is some ethical things we, on a strategic level, have a reflection around. That is not that you can put all the things you have in the match and so on to one thing, but there will be a lot of things around it. But the ethical question is on sitting in the boardroom. That is one of the most important things for us right now.
Yeah. And just adding to that, majority of really good footballers, learn very early on to kind of sleep almost anywhere, just to capture if it's 20 minutes here, half an hour there, 10 minutes, power naps, whatever, just to make sure, especially like in pre-season, or you're traveling, you're playing international games, you're coming back, you're going away, traveling again to play a domestic league, you've got to capture in the kind of hours in between, you've got to be able to sleep anywhere. Oh, I need my bed to sleep. Sometimes you just got to sleep on the coach and just get on with it.
Yeah.
And that's the majority of really good players. They know they can sleep almost anywhere just to get that power nap.
Like
And one small comment on that, because some of the challenge we have actually right now, that was, I've given a concrete example, that was after the World Cup in cycling, I would think that was in Scotland or something. The Danish cycling team asked for to stay one day later.
Okay, yeah.
Because then you not should travel in the evening and so on. And that was the recovering coach who actually for that. My position is to say that is okay that we funded, the competences, very, very interesting competences, but also take the benefit that we need to find some more money to finance one day more in the hotel. Yeah. And that is some of the challenge we will stay in, that we have the knowledge, but we need leadership to follow this kind of knowledge. Yeah. And that is one of the things we talk a lot about. So could we support that anymore, not only with the competences, but also with a small budget?
Yeah. And speaking about the knowledge you gain, the data, essentially, let's move into that right now, because that's very important into what you're doing, how you're sleeping, that factors in. And it brings us to the present. Let's say, we're moving away from the past before we head to the future, and look at the, coaching and training styles that use technology now, that data that is being used. It's very critical. And so I'm going to lead with you on that, the importance of tech, we've seen, we're speaking about technology here, Steve. So in football training and coaching, let's not forget that part. Yes, there's a training aspect of it, but there's a coaching aspect of it. How do you think that has affected, before when you were playing and now when you're coaching?
Well, I think, technology is amazing. We've got, we're going, 100 miles per hour, everything's happening. More and more people come into the space, tech and sport, and I'll just look at football. I feel, back when I was playing, the tech was a VHS video, or maybe a little later on a disc, and we would watch, say, 20 minutes of the opposition, and that was it. And you go through a few scenarios training-wise, but you had to think for yourself. Yeah. Think outside the box. You had a lot more players who did that because we didn't have anything else around. And maybe some scouts would have gone and watched the team, or you might have watched the team maybe on one of the sports channels or whatever. Yeah. But you had to kind of almost learn on the job and work out very quickly your centre forward, your midfield. You had a little bit of a vague kind of understanding what they're trying to do. But you had to be ready for anything, any situation, expected, unexpected. But now, fast forward, they have everything. They have how fast this guy can, move or jump, how many passes, what kind of crosses, things like that, everything. So it's almost, the player now almost gets dumbed down and get kind of force-fed. Yeah. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. And I think, it's good to have all that information, but then you have to allow the player to start thinking as well, thinking outside the box. That's how you win championships or win World Cups. Or someone actually thinks out the box within the structure of the game, understand the rules and regulations, but it has something different. He or she has something different, makes the difference. So for me, it's almost, great leaps and bounds in technology, and I think it's really good, and it's a fantastic kind of partner going forward in sport. But I think the athlete, you have to leave a little bit of space for the athlete to start thinking outside the box and have a little bit more character as well. Yeah. So I feel sometimes the players are almost not bland, but almost just down the middle. I want a bit of excitement. I want some character. Who are you? I don't want you kind of completely kind of sanitized. I need some character. That's my upbringing. And that's the kind of environment I'm from. Yeah. You can do the rules and regulations, you can be down the middle, but I need a bit of more something about them.
Well, an Invincible's vibe is hardly the problematic one. But, you mentioned the fact that, dumbing it down, the data, right? The technology, at the end of the day, that you want to think. I would say that you also want to dream, and this is where I come to Teresa, that, talk to us about the technology that the athletes are using with Emma, and how that helps. Because at the end of the day, from my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, sleep is the least, tech needing, any assistance on that front.
It's only impacted by tech, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we use technology to gain really valuable insights. So we use online questionnaires, diaries, and so stuff to closely monitor any potential changes in sleep behavior, sleep quality, sleep duration. And this more data-driven approach allows us to truly understand what makes a difference and what are all the elements at play. Like, for example, how does the coffee I took at noon or 2 p.m., 4 p.m. affect how long it took me to fall asleep? Or how does the pint in the pub in the night before affect how often I wake up and then how refreshed I might wake up the next morning? But we also use technology to build a close relationship with our players.
Sure.
Because I've actually really come to appreciate even more the personal relationship on top of technology. So we use technology to collect data, have a more tailored approach also. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, but we use, based on the data we see, we give them more tailored sleep advice. But then it's also the relationship that really comes in. Especially sleep is still a very intimate topic, and one that requires trust and time to open up and to truly see progress. So I always prioritize personal visits, be it workshops or individual one-on-one sessions with the players. And so far, this mix between technology and data on the one hand and personal relationships on the other has led to some really promising results. I mean, we've seen that by improving sleep, we saw an increase or an improvement in reaction times. We saw a reduction in sports anxiety, improvement or increase in confidence, and also enjoyment of the game. Or in the case of a German football club, for example, we saw that we managed to boost sleep quality by 21%. Sleep satisfaction of the players went up by 26%, and perceived performance capacity of the players went up by 17%. And what's also actually most important to me as a sleep scientist here is that 100% of our participants improved their sleep knowledge. So they know more about why sleep is important and what they can do to change it. Because there's this say of, give a man a fish and he eats for a day, teach a man to fish and he will eat for a lifetime. And this is sort of our philosophy for the sleep consultancy. We really want them to understand why it's important and what can I do to sleep better, also once circumstances change.
No, we're full of idioms today, and that one makes a lot of sense. But Franz, I mean, on that point, we were talking about, how players are affected, right? You've seen technology grow. We were just discussing about the data, when it's too much, when it's too little, is it simple otherwise? Talk to us about a sport, an event for the Danish Olympic Committee, or otherwise, that you've seen the tech grow through. And you've seen them making a difference for the coaches itself, not just about sleep, but the other data that they use for a player or a team, if you want.
Yeah, I think that it's not starting with data. It's starting with the big, the question of what kind of knowledge we want to have in the future, not today. So instead of to test a lot of things, actually have a reflection about the organizations around it. And the difference between football or some other sports, that there's a lot of money in football, so that is so relevant to walk around here in the conference to see all these different ideas, companies who try to build up a startup and so on. And what we try to do in the Olympic Committee is that we have made a small office, kind of office, where we have some startups, we call it an innovation lab, because many startups really want to have a platform to test the things about. And some of especially the Olympic federations are very, very closed in mind and so on, because there is also kind of knowledge around. So we started to have a more open-minded strategy, that we have made a strategy with the Danish governance to building up the best environment around the startups. So we have this kind of things. On a strategic level, I really think that we should start with the question, what kind of things we want to know? Because today, all the data is there. Some of the Danish Superliga, some of the biggest club in Denmark told me that in the Danish league, I can imagine what has happened in the Premier League, and normally Danish Superliga match, you have 2.5 million data points on each game. And you can, go in a different way with all this kind of data.
Yeah.
To find the right way to using that. That will also still some new competences, not to the coaches, to the organization, to the owners in the whole industry. What we talk about, or I talk about, and why I'm so interested, that I have the right skills to use the data. So data literacy, the competences to go from a lot of information to the right decision, or right for the organization to move. That is the challenge we, and I'm in personal, have as a focus. So data literacy as a competence, I think that will be the next skills for the next many years in clubs, in federation, in the committees around countries.
Yeah. No. Also, I mean, what you mentioned about, there's a little bit of a reluctance to get there slowly. At least in the Olympic, committees, it takes a while. If I'm being correct. Like you said, it takes a while to accept the new technologies because you have to get them right for every sport.
Yeah, I think we have a split. That if we talk about this agenda for 5 years ago, we will talk about we need data on this, we need technology in that. When I'm looking out there, you have technology, you have data in a lot of things. So they have to switch to use it on the right way.
Yeah.
Because the data is there. If you sitting in the Premier League and you have all the data, I heard that Liverpool have 25 or something, engineering kind of guy, you have the own discussion. So you also go with the feelings, you also go with your experience as a coach. So the right mix in this kind of things, I think, and that is what I talk about, data literacy. So to have the right data literacy, have the right data, but the right strategy to use the benefit of the data. I think that is the question.
Yeah. Sol, would you agree with that? Yeah.
I think for me, data, the trouble is with data, a lot of the data is driven by people, sometimes not in sport. And that's the trouble. You're doing all these kind of like advancements and here and there, and it's actually, when you look at sportsmen, or sportsmen and women, they're nowhere near it.
Yeah.
You're nowhere near it. It's like, actually have a conversation with me and see what I want.
Yeah. So that would be like the bridge, right? That would be like the player-athlete data going into data literacy.
I think
it's
so.
not just.
I think a lot of it's been built, and some of it will work. Other times they build it for other reasons other than sport. I think that's a lot, happening in these tech companies.
Yeah.
So it's all about what you want out of it, really, and what the team wants out. You're saying Liverpool's got 25 engineers in there. Obviously, something's not working at the moment, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's all about what do I want out of it. Not what you want, not what you think you think that I want. That it's a communication. Let's have a conversation about that.
Yeah.
The question again,
What you want and also what serves you well, right? I mean, if we have all those technology, the question is also to what extent can we still use it or take advantage of it, and where does it maybe undermine our well-being or our health, our sleep? I mean, technology affects very much how well we sleep, and quick show of hands, who of you uses their phone, iPad, laptop in the evening just before bed, or watches telly at night? Yeah, and don't be shy, because as a sleep scientist, I can tell you, you can continue doing it and still sleep perfectly fine, especially when I work with young athletes. Asking them to put the phone to the side 2 or 3 hours before bedtime would be a ridiculous rule, and one that neither of us would comply with. But still, there are some things that we should be aware of and really watch out. And I think when it comes to coaching, because you asked of coaching methodologies as well, I think we can really take advantage also of players' interest in technology, and rather than working against it and say, okay, we employ technology or tech devices to maybe share more health advice, or in our case, sleep advice, in a gamified way, or by using technological streams or communication channels that already exist.
No, but one more thing I just want to talk about is privacy as well.
Yeah.
I think what is happening with the data, some of the guys and girls who are building these companies, the privacy is kind of being overlooked. And then the trouble is they're kind of building out all these kind of interesting, amazing kind of platforms or things that read how fast you jump or whatever. But trouble is sometimes they're kind of can almost be used against the athletes as well. Potentially, if someone is in another club and say, oh, I fancy buying that player, and then they know all the data, how high, oh, he can't jump so much on his left, or he can only do this or that or whatever. It's almost, you can almost couple a deal if they know too much information. And that's the privacy side what's coming in, what is kind of a little bit, being overlooked here.
No, but I mean, that's a fantastic point. And France, I'd like to bring you on this because data privacy is, so important and absolutely well raised. But what would you say as, is your position on the same, and how would you say you're protecting athletes from that in a coaching perspective,
That is kind of responsibility that we should have a committee. So that is the reason also we have this innovation lab, so we can engage with that, we have checks and balance, so we know the things we invest in actually have this priority. And again, that is so much the dialogue based. So if there are a player and didn't want to have, this kind of information and so on, I really also appreciate that to have this this kind of thing. That is, you're not only a football player or an Olympic athlete. Most important, you are a human being. And I totally agree with Sol and also with the comments from here and from Tata. That is different. And what I really need to understand as a board member, that's different when we talk about data. The lacking data, what kind of thing have happened in the past? You cannot build up players who are on this so tall and so high and stuff like that, but that is more the leading part of the data. So why could we invest in this situation to have more benefits? So going for lacking, and what I've seen a lot of things that we have a lot of lacking data, and that is not so relevant. That is more the leading part of the data. So where should I push me to the right discussion or direction as an argument? That is some of the things I should say, something I need in the boardroom, more leading for lacking data.
I feel like you want to come in on this, yeah?
No, I'm fine. I'm good.
Okay, because I felt like, the concept of that data being used, as a, sleep company, you're using the most of it. So, how you see that perceiving moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's also when it comes to coaching or the future, we want to invest in what truly makes a difference, what has impact. We don't want to spend neither money nor time on things that don't really make a difference. And where I can tell you sleep certainly makes a difference. It's still that we also use the technology and everything to see where do our athletes on an individual level really need support. Some players may have difficulties falling asleep. Others say, I fall asleep just fine, but then I wake up very often in the morning, and they need different type of advice and help.
That's funny because you mentioned this when we were chatting, that I could sleep whenever, early not so much. And that brings us to the healthy habits we were discussing, that what are the kind of mental toughness, healthy habits roles in lifestyle, of champions?
Yeah.
What was that for you back then? And how has that changed now that you're coaching athletes?
I think back then when I first started football, it was obviously the changeover from academy, youth team football to first team football. I had to rest more. I couldn't keep up with some of the older guys at 25 because it was like it's a big jump. Skill-wise, I could do it. Experience, I had to obviously learn, but kind of just competing with the endurance-wise, I had to sleep a lot. That's one of the main things for me. I had to kind of get my food right and rest properly, and I had to kind of be disciplined, really seriously disciplined. Like, 18, 19, 20, still a lot of friends are still hanging around and want to do this, want to do that. You got to be disciplined and say, right, I'm looking at the bigger picture very early on, mature. You got to be mature about this and say, hey guys, I'll see you maybe at the weekend I might, but I'm not going to see you in the week.
Yeah.
And the good friends understand that as well.
Yeah.
For sure. If I just jump in here, because I'm not just a sleep scientist, I'm also a psychologist. So mental well-being and coping with family and friends and so on is always very close to my heart. And football, or any sports, in fact, is an emotional roller coaster, I think. Playing in front of massive audiences with high expectations from others, and especially also from yourself, carries immense weight. And in sports, Emotions can swing from the euphoria of victory to devastation of defeat within seconds, while also encompassing challenges of living in a foreign country, missing family, loved ones, friends at home. And we need to bear in mind that talented athletes who enter this professional field are still remarkably young. And growing up is quite tough at times for everyone, as we all remember. And this is why we also see that mental disorders are particularly high during teenage years. And while I don't want anyone in this room now starting to feel depressed and really sad, there's a silver lining, because we also see that leading a healthy lifestyle can help you grow into a talented, strong, happy, and healthy individual. And here again, sleep plays a pivotal role. Substantial research consistently highlights a very, very strong connection between our emotional well-being and how well we sleep. Studies already show that improving sleep can alleviate depressive symptoms. It can lower mood episodes in disorders like bipolar disorder or anxiety disorder substantially, just through better sleep. And if you as a coach then ask yourself, okay, how can this help my team not only feel better, be happy and mentally strong and well prepared, but also win? Studies show that sleep not only improves your physical performance and your injury resistance, but it has also led to a remarkable decrease, a 45% decrease in fouls committed, thanks to better emotional control, resulting in less red and yellow cards. And I'm sure you all agree with me, when it comes to winning, it's much better to have all players on the field.
I'm going to come back to the red and yellow cards with Sol in a minute. But Franz, I wanted to discuss, because we just touched on a very important topic about mental health, correct? And tell me, like, was there, a particular lifestyle habit that you've seen with Olympic athletes where they favored to take care of their mental health a little bit more over physical training one or the other days, whether it's before or after,
Yeah. One of the things that changed very bit for the last year, that again, I talk about the waves that were coming for the physical, then I would say the food and the mental things were part of the sleeping data is so relevant to have a talk about. We have a case from 3 years ago. We are, Denmark is a very small country, but we actually do very well in swimming. And that is a very, very high competitive environment there are in the national team and so on. And there was some issue, was a big story also, that the mental health on the team was not very well. And from, again, 5-10 years ago, that will not be a part of a discussion. But the mentally part of to be athletes, especially when you, as us, as funded from the government, we need to understand the new generation. When I was a player also, when maybe you was a player, that was very, very tough, and you must learn it from the other one. That have changed right now. So the mentally part of the game, and also with all the social media, that is also some, that you have the feedback not from your coach anymore. You have it from, and that is also the technology things we need to have a reflection around, that many streaming issues around in the youth teams and so on now film. So your feedback is coming on the social media, because now there's live streaming for all the matches and so on. Back in days, that was your parents and your coach. Now the feedback to all the youth athletes, and that is kind of health overload, I would say. So that is, I would say, that is high discussion level, and we are past if we see into our system that every Olympic teams have a mentally coach, have psychologists on the team, and we have a setup around it. That had happened for the last 3-4 years and so on. The next step will be more focused on have the right data, the right discussion. Again, I talk about leading or lacking. That is not, we have the lacking data, we have a problem. What kind of things should we do? That is more that we have the right information and the right movement so we can do something before. And then we also have individual things that someone, have some tough way of working that it's okay for them. Others should handle on different ways and so on. So we are individual also in a team sport, and that is one of the challenges. But organization-wise, we need to go from more leading factors in this kind
Moving
of
forward, I imagine, right? Yeah, so looking towards that, and I believe we're running short soon enough, but I do want to move to the future now, really quickly on that front, that we've arrived at the point where I'm going to ask you that question, but I also want to touch on the future outlook of what it looks for coaching. I'll come to you, Sol, after I go this way, because that's an important point from me, so you get a few more seconds. But what would you advise the coaches of tomorrow on understanding and, basically nurturing potential champions? And finally, building that point up, coaches don't play, do players coach? Teresa.
Well, I think to nurture potential champions, it's important that we keep or have this holistic perspective of all factors shaping an athlete's skill set, health, and happiness or well-being. And in this broader system, I would want coaches to recognize, now in my very specific case, that sleep isn't just recovery or just recovery, it's a performance enhancer. And by helping athletes to sleep well, you're empowering them to unlock their full potential in what you mentioned, not just on the field, but also off the field, also in their private lives, also as a team member. Last question was, if players also
Coaches don't play, do players coach?
To be honest, I think it's a mix of both. I think it's the coaches that play also this part within the bigger team and part of this one family or team. But of course, the players also coach, and they coach themselves very much as well. Like if I know, okay, I've tried this and I see how it has helped me, they also share their learnings or their lessons with their teammates.
Yeah, Franz, do
it's
players coach?
very short to say, it's never going to be an iPad who are going to be the next head coach.
Yeah.
I think that the most important thing that we have coaches, but they are more leaders in coaches, and that is a reflection of what the comments.
Yeah. Sol, the future outlook we discussed, and I really want you out. What do you see moving forward for coaching?
I think for me, moving forward, if we go forward 50 or 100 years and we look back, I feel with this period of time, when it comes to coaching or diversity or black coaches and things like that, in this ecosystem, when you look at it, you want the best coaches, but you just want a level playing field and allow growth to come and participate in a beautiful world kind of game. And it doesn't matter where you're from or who you are, what color you are, just allow you to kind of get into this environment. I think if they look back, they'd be saying, what's happened here? Why are they stuck at this period of time when you can get, satellites or structures from India onto the moon, and we know what's happening or try to kind of understand the world. But when it comes to here, or, maybe deep in the sea, we don't even know, we haven't even moved from this situation. The big elephant in the room is like, we want diversity, we want equality, things like that. But when it comes to coaches, going forward from diversity backgrounds, and that's worldwide, it's a worldwide problem, it's not just in the UK, that is a situation that we have to address. Looking back, they'll be saying, what happened here? Why are we not moving in a positive way?
Well said. Do coaches play? Do players coach? Well, you do.
Yeah, I think they do. I mean, it's all sorts, You don't always have to have an amazing football background. Look at Jose Mourinho, things like that. Look at that. Yeah. Look at his situation.
Can't look farther than Samra right now. I believe we're out of time.
We are indeed, sorry to say, and I'm sure the audience is very hungry as well because it is Spanish lunchtime, so we'll have to leave it there for now. Thank you very much. A big round of applause
Thank you, guys.
for our latest panelists. Have fun, enjoy the rest of your day. Stick around. And as we said, it is lunchtime, so please feel free to go and enjoy the fabulous food that we have on offer for you in the food court that's on the ground floor as well as -1. And a friendly reminder for those of you who are corporate pass holders, you have the corporate lounge open for you and for speakers as well throughout the entire day if you want to make use of that. We'll be back here in an hour and a half at 3 p.m. sharp for our next panel, Vision 2030, Sport Technologies of the Next Decade. Enjoy. We'll see you soon.